Questions 26 through 29. Listen to part of a discussion in a science class.
We get most of our energy from fossil fuels, such as coal, oil, and natural gas. We use these fossil fuels to run machines, to operate cars, airplanes, and other vehicles, to heat our homes, and to make electricity. Unfortunately, fossil fuels won't last forever. Once we use them, they're gone. No one is really sure how big our supply of fossil fuels is. We may have enough to last for a few decades, or we might have a supply that will last for several centuries. Anyway, since they are non-renewable resources, we need to use them sparingly. We also need to come up with ways to save energy so that we can make our supplies last longer. So, any ideas?
I think the best way to save energy is not to use it.
You're going to have to explain that a little more clearly, Stephanie. Are you suggesting that we not use any energy at all?
No, I'm not. I think I stated my idea poorly. I mean that we can do things like walk or ride bikes instead of driving cars. By acting that way, we can save gas.
Yes, that makes sense. Chris?
Since it gets pretty cold here in winter, we use lots of energy to heat our homes then. But if more people used wood to heat their homes, then we could save electricity. My family always has a fire going in the fireplace during winter. It keeps our home warm and doesn't waste any electricity.
That's one possible solution, Chris. But think about this. Imagine how many people there are in our city. Now, what would happen if all of them started burning wood during winter? Yeah, pretty soon there wouldn't be any trees left for miles. See, class, this is a problem we face. We try to solve one problem, but the solutions we come up with can often lead to other ones. Well, one option is to use more alternative energy sources. These include solar, wind, water, geothermal, and nuclear power. However, each of these types of energy has its own problems. Let's focus on solar power first. What are its benefits and what are its drawbacks? Eric, your hand is up.
Now answer the questions. Number 26. What is the main topic of the discussion? Number 27. What does the girl propose that people do? Number 28. Why does the boy mention using wood to heat homes? Number 29. What does the teacher suggest about alternative energy sources? Questions 30 through 32. Listen to part of a talk in a social studies class. I'm sure most of you can tell me what a desert is. It's a really hot place that gets a small amount of water each year. That's right, isn't it? Okay, I see lots of heads nodding, but let me tell you something. That definition I just gave you is wrong. Let me give you the correct definition of a desert right now. It's a place that receives very little precipitation each year. Notice what I left off. I omitted the hot part. You see, the reason is that there are two main types of deserts, hot deserts and cold deserts. Hot deserts are the ones that most people normally think about. They are, for example, the Sahara Desert and the Arabian Desert. The temperatures there frequently get to be more than 40 degrees Celsius. There are, however, cold deserts as well. The Gobi Desert in Mongolia and China is one example. So is Antarctica. Yes, that's right. Despite the cold weather in Antarctica, there is very little snowfall on most of the continent. We can also classify deserts according to how much rainfall they receive. We call them extremely arid, arid, and semi-arid deserts. Arid, as I am sure you can guess by now, means dry. Extremely arid deserts receive virtually no rainfall each year. The Atacama Desert of Chile is one of these. In some parts of that desert, it hasn't rained in more than 400 years. Incredible, huh? As for arid deserts, they receive fewer than 250 millimeters of rainfall each year. Most of the world's deserts fall into this category. Semi-arid deserts receive between 250 and 500 millimeters of rainfall annually. That's enough for short grasses and small plants to grow. Now answer the questions. Number 30. What is the main topic of the talk? Number 31. According to the teacher, what kind of desert is the Gobi Desert? Number 32. What does the teacher imply about the Atacama Desert? Questions 33 through 37. Listen to part of a radio broadcast. We're back from our commercial break, and we're talking with gemologist Sandy Wellman. Professor Wellman teaches geology at the local college, and she has agreed to spend some time talking to us this evening. Before our last break, we discussed the local geology. One thing that Professor Wellman mentioned intrigued me. She said there used to be volcanic activity in this area. So, Professor Wellman, does that mean there might be diamonds in our area? If there are, please let me know where so I can start digging for them.
Peter, there may well be lots of diamonds in this region. Would you like for me to explain why?
Please go ahead. I'm sure our listeners would love to hear this.
Thanks. You see, diamonds are simply carbon. They're formed deep within the earth. Basically, the combination of extreme heat and pressure under the Earth's surface takes a lump of carbon, like coal, and transforms it into a diamond.
What's the connection between diamonds and volcanoes?
Well, as I said, diamonds are formed deep underground, but we often find them near the surface. How does that happen? Most of the time, it happens due to volcanoes. Essentially, volcanic activity forces diamonds to the surface, or at least close to it. For that reason, the majority of diamonds are discovered near places that were either volcanically active in the past or have active volcanoes.
And we live in an area that once had active volcanoes, right?
That's correct. But the last volcanic eruption here happened millions of years ago, so we don't need to worry about any eruptions at all.
That's a relief. So, if I understand you correctly, you're saying that all I need to do is go to the site of an extinct volcano and start digging, and then I'll be able to find some diamonds.
Oh, I am definitely not saying that, Peter. While some diamonds have been found in this area, it's not as simple as grabbing a shovel and digging them up. If it were, I'd already be rich. Let me tell you what you need to do if you really want to find some diamonds.
Now answer the questions. Number 33. What are the speakers mainly discussing? Number 34. According to the woman, what two forces combine to produce diamonds? Number 35. Why does the woman talk about volcanoes? Number 36. Why does the man suggest that he can dig for diamonds in the local area? Number 37. What can be inferred about the woman? Questions 38 through 42. Listen to a teacher talking in a history class.
When Robert E. Lee surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant on April 8, 1865, it pretty much meant that the Civil War had ended. Sure, there were some minor skirmishes fought after that, but the major battles were over. So finally, after 4 years of bloodshed, peace could return to the land. There were celebrations all throughout the Union as people realized that the war had reached its conclusion. Sadly, there would be one final major act of violence, one which changed the course of the entire country. On the evening of April 14, 1865, President Abraham Lincoln and his wife went to Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. With the war over, Lincoln felt at liberty to spend an evening relaxing. During the performance, as he sat in an upper-level box near the stage, he was shot from behind. The assassin was an actor named John Wilkes Booth. He was a strong supporter of the Confederacy, which had lost the war. Booth entered the door of the president's box, placed a pistol behind Lincoln's left ear, and pulled the trigger. He did so during a noisy moment in the play when the audience was laughing. As a result, few people heard the gunshot. Lincoln's wife, Mary, was sitting beside him and immediately saw what had happened. So did an Army officer sitting with Lincoln. As Mary screamed, the Army officer tried to stop Booth, but Booth stabbed the man in the arm with a knife twice. He then leapt to the stage, but he landed awkwardly and broke his leg. Ever the actor, Booth shouted, "Sic semper tyrannis." That's Latin for "thus always to tyrants." In the chaos that followed, Booth escaped from the theater and fled on his horse. Meanwhile, Lincoln was dying. 2 doctors in the audience attended him. When they saw his wound, they realized it was fatal. Lincoln was moved to a nearby house where he died the next day on April 15, 1865. As bad as the assassination was, it could have been worse. Booth was part of a large conspiracy to kill not only Lincoln, but also Grant and several government leaders. Let me tell you what the original plan was.
Now answer the questions. Number 38. What is the teacher mainly discussing? Number 39. According to the teacher, where was President Lincoln when he was shot? Number 40. Why does the teacher talk about John Wilkes Booth? Number 41. What does the teacher imply about President Lincoln? Number 42. What will the teacher probably do next? Stop. This is the end of the listening section.